Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. A 22-year-old man is in police custody, arrested moments after police arrived at the scene of a mass shooting inside a nightclub. People inside Club Q in Colorado Springs say it was chaos inside before midnight when a man opened fire. The shooting happened during Transgender Awareness Week and just minutes before the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which was Sunday. The city's mayor says someone was able to grab the man's handgun and hit him with it before two other patrons pinned him to the ground. The shooting itself only lasted around 1 minute, but unfortunately, his bullets found targets. So far, the death toll stands at 5. Officials had revised the number of injured to 18. Of those, all but one was shot. More than a dozen are still in the hospital. The gunman is also still in the hospital. Court records show Anderson Lee Aldrich was charged with 5 counts of murder and 5 counts of bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury. That's what Colorado calls hate crimes. Prosecutors asked the judge to seal court filings to protect the investigation. Witnesses say the suspect was heavily armed and wearing a military-style flak jacket. The owners of Club Q say they didn't recognize him. Vigils and prayer services were held all around the city on Sunday, and Colorado's governor called for flags to be flown at half staff.
I want to first express my condolences to those families who have lost their loved ones during this tragic event, and to those that were injured today during this tragic shooting. I want every citizen in our city to know that the men and women of the Colorado Springs Police Department stand with you during this tragedy. We are working tirelessly to ensure that justice for the victims in this senseless and evil shooting is given. Club Q is a safe haven for our LGBTQ citizens. Every citizen has the right to feel safe and secure in our city, to go about our beautiful city without fear of being harmed or treated poorly. I'm so terribly saddened and heartbroken.
Joining us today is former Brooklyn homicide prosecutor and defense attorney Bernardo Villalona and former trial attorney and co-host Terry Austin. Bernardo, an LGBTQ bar on Drag Diva Night at the end of Transgender Awareness Week. On top of that, the Remembrance Day. When we know this about the shooter is facing hate crimes, are these facts enough to prove the fact that he's going after this particular group?
Absolutely, Brian. On its face alone, you can infer that it was motivated by some form of hate, because this Club Q, is known to be frequently by the LGBTQ community. However, what else we're going to need and hope that the investigation continues is looking at his social media, looking at his cell phone text messages, conversation and interviews with other individuals to see what his mindset is, a search of his house to see if he has anything that is documented. All those things are going to firm up and strengthen the evidence in the case that it was motivated by hate. But as of now, he's charged with first-degree murder as well as hate crimes, and what he's looking at is life on the first-degree murder. But we'll be watching to see what other information we get as to what led this man to go into a club and kill 5 people and injured 18 others.
Now, Terry, those are state charges. With the FBI investigating this, should we expect federal charges, and what could those be?
I definitely think that we will see federal charges. The fact that the FBI is already investigating this means that they think there's something there. You know, the hate crimes law was first passed in 1968, but it was enhanced. Back in 1968, it just included crimes that are based on race, color, creed. But now we have, in 2009, a law that basically will protect the LGBT community and gender. So I think that they're going to look at this as a hate crime under federal law.
Yeah, we'll see what state and federal charges come about this. More could be added, of course, to both. Well, the man who opened fire at a Buffalo, New York supermarket in May will not have to appear in court yet for what's expected to be a guilty plea. New York court officials announced that because of bad weather, including several feet of snow, court was adjourned Monday. The shooter, a self-proclaimed white supremacist, planned to plead guilty to state charges. He's accused of killing 10 black people at a Tops Market grocery store in Buffalo. The terrorism and hate crime charges he faces have a mandatory sentence of life without parole. A federal grand jury has also indicted the shooter on domestic terrorism and murder charges. Monday's court appearance was moved to January 23rd. Family and loved ones said goodbye over the weekend to Shanquella Robinson, the woman who died from a severed spine while on vacation in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. The FBI is now investigating Robinson's death. The 26-year-old from Charlotte, North Carolina was on vacation when she was found unconscious in her rental home on October 29th. A service was held for Robinson on Saturday in Charlotte. Her family says they were originally told her cause of death was alcohol poisoning. But according to her death certificate, she died because of a severed spinal cord injury. Intervention from the FBI is rare, according to a former assistant director of the agency, and is only taken when there's a reasonable belief that a crime was committed. We turn now to federal court, where a judge sentenced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes to 11 years in prison. This follows Holmes' conviction of 3 counts of wire fraud back in January. Theranos, once believed to be worth $9 billion, promised to change the blood testing game with small samples and quick results. But prosecutors argued that the only success came from Holmes and her ex-boyfriend, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, defrauding investors out of millions. Holmes has accused her ex-boyfriend and former Theranos COO of abusing her throughout the company's operation. Balwani was tried in July and found guilty of 2 conspiracy charges and 10 counts of wire fraud. His sentencing is set for December 7th. As for Holmes, she will report to prison on April 27th, 2023. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. There was uproar over the weekend after a Ticketmaster meltdown and the cancellation of Taylor Swift ticket sales. On Thursday, Ticketmaster canceled its public sales of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour after things went wild during the pre-sales. Ticketmaster says there was, quote, extraordinarily high demands on ticket systems and insufficient is Swift's first tour in 5 years. The problems with ticket sales put Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation Entertainment, back in the spotlight. The Justice Department recently opened an investigation focused on whether Live Nation is violating antitrust laws. One ticket resale website like StubHub sells individual tickets for between $600 for the back row in Las Vegas to $3,000 for front row in Atlanta. Ticketmaster says its systems had to handle more than 3 billion requests, meaning some people in the virtual queue had to deal with the site crashing when they actually made it to the purchasing page. It's unclear when Ticketmaster will reopen sales for Taylor Swift's tour or if there is even any tickets left after the pre-sale blowout. Terry, I say this as the husband of a Swiftie, just asking to play devil's advocate, so don't come for me, anyone, but how do we go from Swifties not getting tickets to it being a legal issue?
Well, it's a legal issue because it's an antitrust issue. Ironically, Brian, we know that the DOJ approved in 2010 the merger of these 2 companies. Now they're investigating Live Nation to see whether or not they have violated any antitrust laws, meaning that they have a monopoly and they are not, dealing with the public's interest in mind. They are saying that they are really doing the right thing and they take these laws very seriously. And of course, Taylor Swift is left in the middle with the difficulty here of getting these tickets sold.
Well, so the DOJ okays it first, and now they're coming after them. Sounds like a lot of bad blood. But Bernardo, let's say the DOJ is successful. What does that mean for Ticketmaster and people who didn't get their tickets? I'm just asking for a friend whose wife is asking.
Well, the problem with that, Brian, is that you're not going to be able to tell or get an accurate list of all those individuals that were actually in queue looking to buy those tickets. So that's going to be difficult to determine. So I doubt that there'll be any payout or settlement having to do with them. I think that there'll be a broad type of settlement in the sense of, look, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, you're going to have to come up with some kind of agreement to avoid this from ever happening again, and some stiff fines.
So it seems like they're never, ever getting back together in terms of those tickets, but we'll see how that case goes.